Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about one of the most famous families of film out there in the world right now, Kodak Portra. So, Kodak Portra, it's a family of films made by the Eastman Kodak Company out of New York, and it comes in three different speeds, as most of you already know. The 160, 400, and 800 speeds of this film. Now, Portra as a family is known for its fine grain, its versatility, and more than anything else, its very nice rendition of skin tones. So for many portrait photographers, it's the de facto portrait film. Now the three different speeds do act a little bit different from each other. It's not just the same emulsion with more or less grain. Now Portra 160, in my opinion, is a much warmer film than 400 or 800, just in my personal experience when I get scans back from the lab. So Portra 160, would be expected to have the finest grain, but I don't see that much more detail realized out of 160 versus 400. Maybe if I did an analog enlargement, I would see that, but I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. I've shot at least 5 rolls of this in medium format and 3 or 4 in 35 millimeter. I really like the warm colors out of Portra 160, and I tend to shoot it around 100 to give it a little bit extra light for that shadow detail. Now next up on the block is Portra 400. Now this is the king of films. I recommend this to most people starting out because it gives such nice colors, and it really does give you a lot of value for your money, even though it is a pretty expensive film compared to the consumer grade stuff. Now Portra 400 is made for scanning. So Portra originally as a family was introduced in 1998, but Portra 400 was updated in 2010. There used to be a neutral color and a vivid color version. I actually have an old roll of 220 vivid color that I haven't shot yet. I've shot a previous roll, and I'll put some images from that now so you can kind of see a few. As you can see from the photos there, it's really saturated. I shot it around 200 because it was a bit expired. I wanted to give it a little bit more light, but it still gave a really nice skin tone. And that's kind of what all the portrait films are known for. So back to the modern version of 400. It was updated for scanning. So it would look better when it gets scanned into a digital format because that's how most photos are shared today. And that's just the reality of living in a modern DSLR mirrorless camera world. Kodak Portra 400, I tend to shoot around 200 because, again, I want to give it that shadow detail. I want to make sure it has enough light. Plus, I like the softer color palette with a little bit lower saturation and contrast, so I can add that back in if I want to in editing with the TIFF file. The last of these film stocks is 800, which I think is one of the most interesting. So one of the reasons I find Kodak Portra 800 so interesting is really its versatility, but more than anything, the grain structure and the more analog crunch it has. Portra 800 can have a tendency to be off in colors when underexposed and not given enough light. So it will go yellow sometimes, not necessarily warm in a good way, just a little bit off. So I tend to expose Portra 800 at 400. Now, this makes a little bit more of a difference when you're trying to actually shoot low light and push. I don't try and get the most out of 800. If anything, I would bring in my own lighting like I have right now. So I've used this softbox over here to light a scene with 800 to make sure it was given enough light. Now, in my personal experience, I don't like the look of Portra 800 in my 35mm work. I find the level of grain to be too distracting even when shot at 400, and that's just in my own personal experience. So I tend to shoot this film in medium format. Now, the one thing I'll touch upon again is that this is not a cheap film stock. You have to know that you're getting into it and you have to commit to it. So again, I tend to overexpose Portra 160 at 100, Portra 400 at 200, and Portra 800 at 400. This will make sure I don't underexpose the film and get really grainy and too contrasty images, and then I get a really nice density on the negative when I get it back from the lab. Now, Portra 400 is one of my most versatile options because it's sharp, pretty grain-free when shot in medium format, and more than anything else, you can shoot it at 200. Portra 800 is one of my de facto films for medium format because medium format lenses tend to be a little slower than their 35mm options. My fastest lens on my Pentax is an f2.4, which is not as fast as the f1.8 my f3 has on it most of the time. So in conclusion, I love the Portra family. Kodak Portra 400 is my de facto in 35mm, and 800 is my favorite in medium format. And I feel like they each have their own place in my bag and in my fridge because I keep a whole shelf of this stuff. So honestly, I would just recommend, giving a roll a try overexposing it, and really try and capture as much detail as you can. Stop down your lenses, make sure everything's nice and in focus because you want to make sure you're getting your money's worth out of this film. Hey guys, thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you could like and subscribe, that would really help me out. Comment any questions you have about Portra 160, 400, or 800 in the comment section below. And if you want to see any files, I've included the Dropbox down there that you guys can really see my edited film scans and the final way I would present them. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.